Weber, and I love to help mature yoga teachers let their wisdom shine. So thanks for being here today. I want to talk to you today about belly breathing and particularly about belly breathing in asanas. First, I just want to say you can join me here every Wednesday at 11 o'clock Eastern. And I am on at 11 o'clock Eastern every Wednesday with tips and support for folks who teach yoga. So I would love you to be here and to join me. Please leave a comment if you're here. Let me know other topics you want me to talk about, and I will be happy to address them. Okay, so welcome. If you're here again, please leave a comment. My name is Kristine Weber. Today, I want to talk to you about belly breathing. So I don't know about you, but when I first started learning yoga, I was taught how to belly breathe, and I loved it, and I still love it. I don't have any problem with belly breathing except for asanas, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But when I first learned belly breathing, or what sometimes is called diaphragmatic breathing, which is really a misnomer because all breathing is diaphragmatic. The diaphragm is the primary muscle of both inhalation and exhalation. So you can't breathe without your diaphragm, so that kind of idea that diaphragmatic breathing is the right way of breathing and chest breathing is the wrong way of breathing is just kind of erroneous from the inception, because it doesn't really take into account that every time you breathe you're using your diaphragm, whether or not you're conscious of it, right? Okay, so that being established, the interesting thing is to talk about the secondary musculature of breathing, which has to do with intercostal muscles and also has to do with abdominal muscles, especially when you're talking about exhaling. So people will talk about belly breathing, and like I said, belly breathing is great, and that's where you kind of inhibit the chest and let the breath come deeper. I'm standing a little too close to the camera, so you let the breath come deeper into the belly. Really good for anxiety, really good for calming the nervous system, for down regulating the sympathetic part of the nervous system. There's many applications for belly breathing. It is one way of breathing. One time I was teaching a workshop in Brazil, and with such a, I smile because I love going there. And a person came to the workshop who told us that his parents had dropped him off at a Tibetan monastery when he was a child, and he grew up there. I was like, whoa. And I never met anybody like that. It was very interesting. It's kind of like Keanu Reeves and Little Buddha or whatever. But anyway, that wasn't Keanu Reeves, the other actor. Anyway, the point being, we were talking about breathing practices, and he said, the monks taught me many ways of breathing. He said, I learned 123 ways of breathing from the monks in the Tibetan monastery. He's like, there's no one right way of breathing. And I think that was such a revelation. I mean, I knew that already, but it was a revelation to listen to somebody who had so much experience with breathing practices, right? So we get sort of stuck in this idea in yoga that belly breathing is the right way, and it's just not. That's just not accurate. It's one way of breathing that has certain applications. Today I want to show you why belly breathing is not good for your low back in many asanas. And I think you'll understand it intuitively as soon as I start talking about it. The first thing I want to talk about are forward bends, right? So let's say you're doing belly breathing and you're breathing into the belly here. And then you do an exhale to bend forward. That's fine. But when you come back up, if you're breathing into your belly, and you could try it with me because it doesn't feel good, you put a lot of strain into these low back muscles, right? So belly breathing could be fine on the inhale before you go into the pose, and then exhale, engage the belly as you go into the forward bend. Now, if you keep your belly engaged and come up and breathe into your chest, you're using the transverse abdominis as well as all the obliques, everything else, and the rectus, 4 layers. You're using that to protect the low back so that you're engaging all of the muscles in that whole area in your coming back up from a forward bend, which really makes sense. And why does it make sense? Because if you go to the doctor or the physical therapist and you say, I have back problems, what are they going to tell you? They're going to say, okay, when you pick something up, and I'll use my block as an example. When you pick something up, I want you to pick it up by bending your knees, engaging your belly. They sometimes they'll say that, sometimes they won't. Use your strong legs, bring that object in close to your body and come up with a straight back. Have you ever heard that? And then, so why in yoga are we always just like belly hanging out and rolling up here? There are reasons to roll up. I'm not suggesting never roll up. Like that certainly falls under the rubric of different fitness, different fitness activities that can be helpful for you. So I'm not saying don't ever roll up. However, the physical therapists and the physicians will tell you when you have low back problems not to roll up and to keep the back straight and to engage the core. So why don't we do that more in yoga? I mean, I think people are coming to yoga to look for help with their back. So it makes sense. Let's talk about belly breathing in a couple other postures. For example, in a side bend. So I'm just going to use this as an example of a side bend, right? And it could be like you could call that kind of half moon pose, right? So that's an example of a side bend. Okay, so why would belly breathing not be so great in a side bend? Well, one of the things with a side bend is what I'm trying to do is mobilize the intercostals on that side as much as, getting into like creating more space between the ribs and the hips. Like that's happening too. But so if I'm in a side bend and I'm belly breathing, that's fine, but I don't feel much here. Now, if I keep the belly firm and then I breathe into I'm folded over to the left, so got my right arm up. So I breathe into my right ribs. Now I've just created more sensation. I've created more openness in those intercostal muscles, which is the functional purpose of the pose anyway. So why wouldn't I do that? The other reason to keep the belly engaged on the inhale part of that pose, or the stay part of that pose, is because then I'm supporting my low back, because side bends are sometimes risky for people with sacroiliac joint issues. So that's another reason to do it. Why else would I belly breathe? Well, let's say you're in a twist, like a wide-legged twist. I'm going to come back to my mat. Sorry if you can't hear me so well on Instagram, but let's say you're in a wide-legged twist, right? You're doing like a pose like this with a block maybe, right? Now, when I come back up out of that twist, if I'm breathing into my belly to come up, again, I just didn't support it. That's like a twisty, coming up out of a twist forward bend, right? So it's the same reason why I would want to engage my belly coming up out of a forward bend. So that's another reason. Another reason for for not doing belly breathing is extension poses. So for example, warrior one is an extension pose, right? So I've got my back foot forward. I'm sorry, I've got my left foot, my right foot forward, not my back foot forward, my right foot forward, my left foot back. And as I come into this pose, I'm trying to extend the spine, right? If I'm belly breathing, and you could try it, if I'm belly breathing, yeah, it's not that interesting. If I keep my belly engaged and I take my arms up and breathe into my chest, now I've just worked on lengthening my thoracic spine in the pose, which is part of the functional purpose of back bend, is creating more space in the thoracic spine, right? For many people, the lumbar spine is already very loosey-goosey. It's already kind of moving around a lot. And so belly breathing doesn't inhibit that at all, right? And that's another reason why in many different postures, having a little strength in the belly is very useful. So I recommend what's called structural breath. I've done many videos on structural breath. You can check them out on YouTube. And structural breath is where, and I learned this from my teacher, Gary Crafso, and Vinny Yoga. It's a very supportive way of practicing asana and sustainable. So here we're lifting the chest on the inhale. The end of the inhale, the belly can free up a little. And then when you exhale, you re-engage the belly and let that exhale move out. And then to breathe in again, the belly stays a little firm. And you breathe into the chest, let go of the belly on the end of the inhale. Some people now, I just explained structural breath to you in like 15 seconds. It took me about 3 years to really start to get it in my practice. It can take a while. So don't make a quick judgment based on just this video. You know, give it a try, spend some time, watch my other videos. Sign up for the Subtle Yoga Resilience Society and study with me every week if you're interested in this stuff, because I'm very, very interested in and dedicated to people, to teaching people how to do yoga for longevity, you know, for the rest of your lives. Yoga that's sustainable, yoga that won't trash your sacroiliac joint or your lumbar spine or all your joints in general, you know, that you can keep doing. I don't know how many people I've met who said they had to quit doing yoga because they got injured from it. And you know, it doesn't have to be like that. It can be different. So thank you so much for being here and for joining me. Please leave a comment. I'll be back next week. I'm here 11 a.m. every Wednesday. So thank you, and I'll see you next week. Lots of love.